Hello and welcome to the Future Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Spiker Christensen.
That was a good impersonation.
I had to.
I can't even think of a quote now. That was too good. That seriously, the funniest part though is like that part had me laughing harder than any other moment in the show. Like
Oh yeah,
I was so not expecting it. I almost like died. I was laughing so hard.
dude, I
And
expected it because I have a roommate that was exactly, exactly Nathan Fielder in the show. Mutual friend of ours. I won't say his name to humiliate him, but everything that Nathan Fielder did, Asher in this show was our friend to a T.
are you talking about?
I never said Kevin.
I'll edit that.
Please do. Yes, it reminds me of Asher. Like, and I give my reasons why.
It's
But
okay. We'll never listen to this episode. Nick and I talked about how is exactly like one of the characters from The League. He's the
Paul Shear,
Paul Shear. Yeah. Paul Shear's character
Kev too.
totally
Yeah,
reminds us of.
that's
Yeah.
super funny. Yeah. So, dude, any cringeworthy quotes or memorable lines you wanted to shout out? Yeah.
I was just gonna do his yell as he's like lifting up in the sky. Oh, ah, ah. That scene actually reminds me of an old YouTube video, the Superman where he kicks the guy, shoots him into space. Do
Was
you
that the
remember
Rocket
that?
Rocket video?
Yeah. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh,
The Superman or DC versus Marvel, right?
yeah. Uh, No, oh sorry, not Raka Raka. It's like Rocket Super Jump or whatever that channel's called. I don't know. Anyways, but
Rocket Super Jump.
if you
Is
look
that
up
a thing? Yeah. Maybe it is. I don't know.
whatever, but
Go check out his channel. It's way cooler than ours.
this is wow, let's just get right into it. I don't even know where to start with this.
Jordan's starting really, really tired. So let me blow your mind with a few of these things. All right. Today we're talking about The Curse. This is a Nathan
Our
Fielder,
second
Benny Saft,
Nathan Fielder show we're talking about.
which is weird because how have we not talked about Nathan for you yet?
Have we? Did we talk about Nathan for you? I've got to re-listen
I know
to.
we. Okay, so when we did our top 10 TV shows, I can't believe I didn't mention the
You didn't even
rehearsal
mention it,
because
but I'm wondering, did when we talked about the rehearsal, did we talk about Nathan for you at all? Like our favorite episodes?
I have a sneaking suspicion we might have, but this will give us a great opportunity to just
Dive
rehash
into it.
all the things that we said there, and we can say them again here because that's what content is on the internet these days. This is just content, but we love it, listeners, and we love you. So we're talking about The Curse. This movie is this. I want to say this might be like an anthology because I don't know how you make a second season from this thing. I don't think you can. And warning, there's going to be heavy spoilers on this podcast about this show. So if you haven't watched it and you like cringe and it goes to 11, watch this show.
Yeah.
Because has some of the most uncomfortable moments in any movie or any show I've ever seen. So but yeah, this was directed by Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie.
Benny.
Benny and it stars Emma Stone, Nathan Fielder, and Benny Safdie. It's got also I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly right. Barkad Abdi, I think. He's I am the captain now from Captain Phillips. That's all I remember him from. It's got Oscar Avila, Nishonia, Austin, Sydney, and a few others. But of course, you can't forget Corbin Bernstein, or excuse me, Corbin Burnson. He's from Psych. He's the dad in Psych. I always remember him from that, and a few others going down the line. But anyway, the main actors, the main players. What is the show? So for those of you that are listening, you probably haven't seen the show. This is a newlywed couple that struggles to make their version gosh, I can't read this. A newlywed couple struggle to make their vision for eco living a reality in a small New Mexico town. That was hard for me to read. It's all deceptive. Yeah, they have this listed as a satire, comedy, drama, thriller, which is pretty crazy. And I think the thriller comes from the freaking soundtrack of this show, dude. Oh my
Kind
god.
of reminds me a little bit of Uncut Gems. I actually thought it
Yes,
might have
of
been the same
course.
guy who scored it because I'm like, oh, Benny Safdie, maybe he hired that guy. And I
Yeah.
didn't see anything about the same. It didn't look like it was the same musician. However, I don't know if they got him to just do just that theme because that
Hmm.
theme is where it does the sound that sounds exactly like Uncut Gems.
Yeah. My goodness, folks. So getting into the show, there's so much to say about it. First, we're gonna go like when it was like watching this show for the first time, Jordan, and rewatching it for the podcast.
Well, I
If
mean,
you have,
I didn't rewatch it. No,
yeah, buddy.
um, it's 10 hours, and that's why Cameron's not here. He's like 10 hours. He's like, forget it. So we tried to convince
Oh,
him to watch it, but
he needs to watch this. Should be required viewing in high school.
the two names were obviously what drew me to this show, Benny Safdie and Nathan Fielder, because after watching
But
the
not Emma
rehearsal,
Stone. Yuck.
oh, here we go. Oh my gosh.
I'm
Okay,
kidding.
so uh,
I had to get you on your feet. Here you
no, she's
go.
great.
Yeah.
I just really love what work they put out. Like obviously Uncut Gems and Good Time is in my top 100 because they're masterpieces.
Yeah.
And
Directed by
Nathan
Safdie and his brother.
Fielder's
Yeah.
rehearsal, like I don't think I've ever been so like mind blown in my life. Felt like my brain was like coming out of my head.
Crazy.
Just and so these two like amazing minds coming together seems like a match made in heaven. So I couldn't not watch it. And watching it, I was just like, what am I watching? And because it gives me about everything. It's kind of like the second or third season of Atlanta, just that
Oh yeah.
anxiety that
Mm.
I was like these are the types of people like I avoid like the plague. I do not like these types of people because they're so phony. And but I find it so fascinating. I couldn't stop watching because there's many times my wife's like, "Why are you watching this? It's stressing you out so much." And I'm like, "It's just so well done, and it's not like anything."
Well, you took a break from
Oh, jeez. And
like, oh, let me explain to you why I love it. I
what
don't
about
need to justify myself to you.
what about you, Ty?
Uh, Chase, watching this show, yeah, same thing. I'm a huge Nathan Fielder fan, and this extends like beyond his shows. His interviews with people is insane. I think he's a real life troll, or he's like,
No, he is the guy from maybe we've already mentioned this. I should have listened to rehearsal before doing this episode, but
eh,
he is totally the guy from Prestige. Remember the old man that walks around
yes,
with the
yes, carrying the fishbowl on his legs.
and he
That's
pretends to be a
that's Nathan
cripple
Fielder.
his whole life just so he
Yes,
can stay. It,
yes.
yeah, that's
He literally
him.
went on like I think it was one of the Jimmys, Jimmy Stewart, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, I've seen like some of the
And
just the
he's like wearing an
thumbnails.
earring and his
Yeah.
little moon spectacle. Like it's not that's not him. And he's duping some people. Like, and again, you would even think that like because like I remember what was his name? Joaquin Phoenix tried that. He went on an interview with
Oh, kind of getting lost in your role. What's
yeah,
that called?
almost
Method acting.
it's like a method actor, but yeah,
Yeah.
what was his name? I can't remember his name. I'm such an idiot. He also interviewed the cat massage lady. What's his name? Why am I struggling? He has a big beard now. I can't
There's
think
a
of his name.
ton of talk show
I
hosts.
know, but anyway,
Jimmy Fallon,
no. He's like an
the
older guy.
orange hair guy, the Larry King. Oh, he's too old. I don't know. It
Well,
doesn't matter.
he's old like it
It
dumb.
doesn't
Yeah, it
matter.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just so tired right now. We're doing this late. We'll do it live. Dang it. All right, so
Dude, Red
um
Letter Media just nailed what it's like to run a podcast. Just like
yeah.
everybody talking over each other and just
What
like,
was that? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. They're or they're, but it was a live stream, which has other complications that we don't necessarily deal with.
well,
But
yeah,
yes.
but sometimes though I'm so lazy, I just throw in, I mean, I don't edit out all our mistakes because I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't care.
Who the freak cares? Yeah. I'm the same way. Well, I mean, I don't edit anything,
Well,
but
I
I'm the same
do.
way and I
There are
let it go.
things though that really bug me and I have to edit out. And they nailed it, just like the sounds of like, the like if
Oh,
you
I
go
know.
back and listen to our episode of Whiplash, Ty has totally destroyed that audio.
Well, I was just trying to give that apprehension, that Miles Teller felt, with freaking J.K. Simmons watching him drum. Let's get into what was it like? I gotta say this, there's unlike anything. Every time I watch something that Nathan Fielder's done, it blows my mind
Yeah.
because I don't understand how this was greenlit. I don't understand how he pitched this. I don't even know if he goes in as a caricature or goes at method acting promoting this show. Like I almost would love have to have been
Well,
a
he
fly on
has
the
a
wall when
name
he.
for himself now. I don't
Of
think
course
he,
he does. It's true.
yeah, you watch Nathan For You and he has like,
But like somehow this show like and it was so funny. Like I read some of the Letterbox reviews. So apparently this is on Letterbox. You can review it there. So
Yeah, it's
you
funny
know,
which TV shows they pick and choose are and
yeah.
aren't on there.
So I was reading one of the well, some of the comments. They were all
Did
like
you read
Nathan
Jared's
Fielder's.
review?
Read his review. He said I didn't see the whole thing, but I did see his video that he did about hyperreality or something. It was
Oh,
about Cat Williams and his interview that he did.
he just
He
said it
talks a little bit
was
about the curse. He didn't
yeah,
care for the ending,
yeah. That's
right?
all he
Yeah, yeah.
said in the
Oh, okay, yeah. But he
Letterbox
mentioned
review.
that in the video where he's like, yeah, everything
Mm.
but the ending. And I'm like, I don't know. To me, like the ending is so out of left field. I agree. It's like swinging for the fences because I'm also like, wait, what the freak is going on here? Because
Honestly, I was almost like, oh, I kind of wish they started with that, like a man that like gravity.
we started with it.
Yeah,
You don't have a
I love
show.
that. I love that premise. Like a man who's all of a sudden the gravity works in reverse for him. I don't know why I like love that premise. It
Well, I mean, it happened in this show, but you wanted it at the beginning of the show as a.
well,
I don't
just
think
to and then the whole show and him having to deal with that.
they did, Jordan. It was George Clooney and Sandra Bullock out in a space station. The whole movie was just them
Oh,
dealing with
gravity.
gravity. Yeah, I knew I was in for a treat, or at least something so different from everything else I've consumed. And I feel like this one was an invitation and it felt very special and unique because I feel like so few people are talking about it. And there's plenty of people talking about it. Well, like
Really,
I'd
I feel
say
like it's the only thing people are talking about.
well, it's funny that you say that because like yeah, if you go looking for it on YouTube, like everyone's having their channels and posting stuff and I just think it's so out there. You'd think it'd be like more memed and I think if more people watched it, it would be. But like I think Nathan Fielder like transcends this planet. I don't know if he's like like behind closed doors, he's like, whew, I can be myself, you know? Or he's like, no, like I wonder how self-aware he is. I have a sneaking suspicion with his level of comedy, he's probably very self-aware.
Well, I'd love to ask Seth Rogen because he grew up with them. Apparently,
Really?
they're
Yeah,
yeah.
and see, and that finds I find fascinating because like I've showed you that documentary about it, what is Nathan Fielder because they literally have like these photos that seemingly were his childhood, and he's like completely ostracized from everyone, and he seems to have no friends. And then tragically, like he did go through a real life divorce, which he ended up referencing in the rehearsal to try to get a guy to open up to him, but he was manipulating him and he hadn't been divorced at that moment. He wasn't divorced yet. So you're like what is going on? I don't understand. I don't know what is Nathan Fielder and what makes him tick, but like I just love that one Benny Safdie said this quote where he was watching the rehearsal or he was actually watching Nathan for You, and there's an episode where they try to get around smoking in a bar, so they put two chairs in an audience and he puts on a play, and Nathan's Fielder's character thinks that it's the play or like what's going on is what's intriguing to these two people rather than the fact that it was just an authentic moment, right? Authenticity. What is reality, right? Like it was a slice of life or like a just a simple play, right? And the people that went to the stage liked it. And so he ends up hiring actors that look like the people and recreates this boring play because I mean recreating this moment. But Safdie watched it and he goes, when you become obsessed with recreating reality, you can create something hilarious, which is weird because Safdie is like, as funny as his movies might be, like Good Time had some laughs and Uncut Gems had some laughs, but like I'm definitely sweating more than I'm laughing. Like they're thrillers more than like
Oh, 100%.
yeah, and I'm like stressed out. So
Yeah.
like when he says like I'm like, dude, I don't think you're using the right word. When he said hilarious, he should have been like, you can create something like thrilling or unnerving, I think is probably a better word. But he might even think it's funny and he's like, yeah, like this
In
stuff
some
makes me
sick
laugh.
sadistic
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he has like a weird sense of humor where he's like that. Cause I get it. Like the Nathan Fielder, I loved that show. I still love it. And
Which show you're talking Nathan for you?
Nathan for
Okay.
You, sorry. And the idea that yeah, he gets hyper fixated on recreating something, but it's not, that wasn't what was impressive. And so to illustrate the point, there's a great scene, and this is like my whole favorite thing about watching this thing, so I'll go right into two of my favorite things. It's literally the scene where Emma Stone can't get her sweater off, And so she's like, Asher, help me, who's played by Nathan Fielder, help me remove my sweater. And they pull, and then he falls over backwards, hits his head on the
And
against the
they have
wall.
like a funny moment.
They have a sweet moment. And they liked it so much, and they're both laughing, like, see, this is us. And they were laughing, and it was like a real moment, a relief of tension, and you almost feel like they were coming together as a couple, right? And what's so great about that moment is it was authentic, right?
Yeah.
The cameras weren't rolling, they were being themselves. And then instantly, like a few seconds later, she goes, oh, let's film this for my Instagram. And so she gets the camera out and she puts the sweater back on that she had trouble getting off in the first place. And she's like, oh, I've had this sweater stuck on me. And so now it's all performative. And they're
Yeah.
recreating this situation that really happened, thinking that if they just recreate this situation, that like other people are going to watch it and just be enamored by this, right? Like, oh, what a sweet moment. Like they want to convey that authentic moment to other people. And
It-
I'm almost 100% certain this is exactly how comedy writers function. This is how actors function. They take real life experiences and then
yeah.
dramatize them later. Or they literally use it in like shows like Flip or Flop, which Flip Anthropy is like mimicking and mirroring and holding a mirror up to, right? Parody.
Well,
Um,
because it's really
real
hard
life
to
couple.
capture like those moments. Like
Yeah,
them, they just
yeah.
happen to not be recording, and it's like that happens
It,
all the time. So it's
yes,
like,
happens all the time. But then the idea, like immediately after, like, yeah, we got to film this and make this something. And then he's like, they can tell you're faking it, or like,
yeah.
you're
He
it,
you can see it in his face. He's just
yeah.
like,
Oh, he's not having a good time either. He's like, this is so boring. I'm so glad I have a wife that doesn't do social media, because if I had a wife that tried to get me to do stuff like this, oh, I'd be walking, dude.
oh
That is
yeah.
ridiculous. And it's so upset. Or like, yeah, you're sitting down ready to eat your meal. It's like, hold on, I got to take photos of like the plate, the food, and then myself at the restaurant. Like, I would be like, I'd start digging in. Be like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's when you stick
are
your
you gonna eat
finger in
that?
it.
Yeah. Like seriously. And so that scene right there, Emma Stone trying to recreate something that was authentic, and that's why it was meaningful, to making something that's so inauthentic meaningful. And so it's like, what is the meaning of reality, right? Like this isn't a real moment. This was something that did happen, and now you're trying to recreate it, but you're faking it. Like she's not actually stuck in the sweater again, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work. And it comes off as super phony, it comes off super forced. And that's what this whole show is about. Like, and I've seen, like, my wife will watch some of those HGTV shows, like the Home Improvements, the Fixer Uppers, the Flip or Flop, all those shows, and they always like, or any reality show. And this show also has a hilarious dig on freaking, I've called it digital heroin on this podcast before. I'm of course referring to Love Is Blind. There's an amazing scene where Dougie's like explaining to Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder that he worked on a show previously called like Love's Degree or Third Degree Love or something like that. And their Love Is Blind. It's literally they haven't seen who this bachelor is. And they find out like at the end when they're eligible, they like go in front of this guy and they find out that he has like third degree burns all over his face. He's a burn victim. All the women like refuse to marry him. Do you remember this fake show? Like amazing. Totally making a mockery of Love Is Blind and all those
Oh
other stupid
yeah.
reality shows.
Yeah.
Love to the Third Degree, I think it was a call or something. Hilarious. And Betty Safdie's laughing. And
He
see,
is
again, he is laughing at it. He's like, this is hilarious. Like, there's so much drama in this show. And it's like, this is awful. You're like deliberately like at this poor burn victim's expense, like matching him up with women that have no business being with him or like don't want to be with him. It's like Beauty and the Beast, right? You take off the mask and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't be married to this guy. Anyway, so funny. So he mocks all these reality shows all in one.
Yeah.
And golly, that's like my favorite thing. What an effective parody,
Well,
dude.
the scary
Nailed it.
part too, as they dive into it, it's like what it's like kind of where do you break from reality in TV? Because at a certain point she was like ready to divorce him. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like really dark. And it was like because he planted those ideas in her head, like you got to create more drama and you need to spice things up. And she almost like went into it like head on, like
Yeah.
almost too hard. And then she like got it in her head, like I want to like divorce him. And she,
I'm the Green Queen, and you have no part. You're the jester.
I know. And
Everyone laughs at.
yeah, it was just like suddenly she took all those little things to the next level.
To quote Benny Safdie, wow, that was really beautiful. Do you remember that when
Dude, his character is
he's like,
hilarious.
dude, Nathan Fielder's performance in a drama role, amazing. He's so unhinged and very unnerving. The soundtrack is unnerving. The freaking every time the text crawl comes up with the curse, they like do the distorted faces.
Yeah.
Every time you see them reflected in their monstrosity of those mirror reflected homes, they're all like faces all distorted. I love it because there's like a monster just lurking inside all of them. Emma Stone is so emasculating to her husband.
Yeah.
Like some great moments, she's like, I would have taken a bullet for you or whatever. He's like, if that had gotten out of hand, I would. And she's like, oh, are you gonna protect me? Are you Mr. Protect? Like it's amazing.
It's
And Asher's
horrible.
like horrified at what he's seeing. It's so
Yeah.
good. Like bone chilling moments like that. And I realized after watching this, I'm like, I don't know who you're supposed to be rooting for. I'm like, yeah, there really isn't. I guess I'm just hoping Puebla gets their city back or Española. Sorry. I hope Española gets their city back from these awful people because they just bring all these problems with them, right? I mean, the freaking the looting that results from the jean store, the people working on this show production. Like, I mean, I don't
Oh,
know. Maybe
the
their
one
lives will never be the same.
and the one other thing I wanted to mention too that I absolutely loved is this idea of when somebody gets something in their head and like kind of essentially taking little things and then believing that that's real. Like him believing that this curse is somehow real.
Oh yeah. Well,
Like
you could say the curse has been lifted at the end, right?
but
That was probably the worst take I took, and it wasn't even a joke. Like someone was like, the curse gets lifted, and he ends up. So again, I've mentioned spoilers, but Nathan Fielder in the show, Asher loses gravitational pull and like gets sucked out into space. So for those of you that are
amazing.
listening, probably don't understand what's going
I
on.
love his
We
buddies
don't
like
either. We watched the
his
show and
buddy's
I
like,
just
we got to get the drone ready.
yeah, dude, Dougie, you have to listen to me. You have to listen to it. And he's like, this is amazing. He's like, get the cameras ready. And he's like, dude, this is great. He's asked the fireman, he's like, can you attach this camera on you? Or this mic on you? I want to hear what he's saying. Oh my gosh, dude. Dougie, you have to listen to me. No. It's sucked up into space, dude. Which is like a legitimate fear. I feel like I've had dreams where I've been falling upward. You know, it's a weird thing. And it's actually a real phobia that exists, but don't know who it's ever happened to except Nathan Fielder. But anyway, plenty of jokes about his career is up and away.
Out of
It's
this
like
world,
the show is
literally.
out of this world. I know, literally. A
Well,
finale that is out of this world, right?
I honestly, you can kind of take it as a metaphor too, like especially the whole idea of like him having a hard time accepting his baby's birth, and so he
Baby's born and he's leaving to
like he
get a
well,
gallon of
because
milk.
I love what the
That
all the
never came
people
back.
keep telling him are like, you're fine. Like this is not the first time. Like other people like don't want to like it's almost too much to handle to have a baby, and so they'll like run, you
Yeah,
know. So it's
fight or
just
flight.
and but it's funny that it's quite literally he's flying, and so it's just at this moment.
I'm gonna go get a pack of cigarettes around this corner. Maybe that's where all the disappearing dads have gone. They've all been sucked up into space. Yeah, well, it's okay. So there's so many interesting things in this show, and I wanted to ask you if you had like, what was the most cringeworthy moment? Because for me, I obviously made that Nathan Fielder at the comedy class. That got close because watching it, like everyone laughing before and after he went, it just solidified it. Like he was trying to get people to laugh with a silly face, and he was trying so hard, and not a single person laughed. It was
Oh,
just
that
so
was
quiet,
so good. I love
so
that
good.
he like struggles so much. But I love that he tries so much. Like he tries really hard.
Oh yeah, I actually wrote down. You said he tries. I wrote down his list of things that he needs to do. So he writes this list about like how to like make jokes for the show, and he's like, be self-depreciating, and he gave an example like James Corden. So you want to talk about how meta this is, right? There's like there's like this whole internet subculture that like hates James Corden. I think most people do, but like he's a talentless hack. He's all over the place. He does this karaoke in his car. He gets to interview the most famous people on earth. He has his own show. There's this chubby, overweight British guy that keeps putting he was dressed up in he was in the movie Cats. Need I say more? Everyone just hates
Oh,
this
that
guy, right?
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, chubby James Gordon. He was Into the Woods, I think was one of his first appearances in American films. But anyway, he lost weight and then people shamed him for losing weight, kind of like Adele. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but um I
That's
just love
so
that he
sad.
said be self-depreciating like James Corden. And I think like I don't think James Corden does a lot of self-depreciating humor, but I'm like, is that a meta commentary on James Corden? Being like, be more like Nathan Fielder's character Asher thinks that he should be some more like someone like James Corden. That's amazing because no one likes James Corden.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
it's hilarious. I'm not kidding. Look it up. Anyway, and then
Well,
he put your energy bill will be cheaper than my haircut. That's literally like a quote he's supposed to use about the greenhouses. These are all his notes in the show. It said avoid race-based humor, which is conversation with Emma Stone is amazing when he's like, yeah, like Mel Brooks when he wrote, you know, the Springtime for Hitler. Uh, it taught us to he was saying something so poignant and he got us to laugh about the Holocaust. I was so just like horrified at what he's saying. He's like, well, not that it's funny, of course, but like we found a way to laugh. And you know,
I
that reminds me of me on the podcast trying to get out my point across. And I'm like, no. I'm inspired by really great art, but sometimes I have a hard time conveying why it inspires me or what it about it that inspires me. So anyway, very relatable moment.
love when his wife, Emma Stone, is like basically using the Native American girl
Oh yeah,
as
Maya.
like
Yes, this whole plot
a
of her.
billboard. Like, I'm gonna use your art and I'm gonna put it in these houses, and she is like pushing it so hard to like this. It's so fake and so phony. I'm pretty similar. Ty, one time there's a black person that moved in he's like, I need to be friends with this person. We need to put this person in all my videos. And it was just like so they could propel their own career and people could see that and be like,
Got it.
oh, he's friends with like diverse people and he's good because I have friends that are like try to propel themselves in the social media realm and like those are important things to do. It's like this movie nails all the little things that like basically every superficial social media person tries to
Yeah,
do.
the people that are chasing clout, right? Like you got to
Yeah.
say the agreeable opinions of the day. You got to say
Yes.
the right things, and you're like, oh, look at my diverse and multicultural group of friends here. Like
Yes.
this Native America thinks my artwork is great, or my buildings are a piece of art, right? And could you explain to the camera like why my buildings are so great?
My
Like,
favorite is though the friend that shows up and he talk even though he doesn't talk like that at
yes,
all, but he tries to
yes.
talk more like an Indian. And
Yes.
she's just
Oh,
like,
the spirit of
oh
this animal. We're so grateful for this food. You are a brave and wild wandering animal, and now you are dinner on my plate of food. And Kara is trying not to laugh. She's like losing it. I love it. That
yeah.
was so
And
great.
he's just totally like,
Just
playing
monitoring.
into her weird ego thing.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
other moments like that too in the show, where like even when she goes to Kara's art show, freaking love that. One of my favorite
Yes.
cringeworthy moments is she's like, "Don't tell anyone what you've experienced or whatever." And then Emma Stone leaves, and she's like, "I don't get it." And then she tells the governor. I can't remember his name, but he's like the governor guy or spokesperson for the tribe or something like that. Um, and, and she's like, "I don't think you're supposed to eat the meat." And so he like goes into the tent, the teepee, and then she's like has this meat cutter. She cuts off a few slices of meat, hands him the plate, and he just sits there and he doesn't eat it. And then she goes, "Ah!" She like screams anyway, and then he's like, "Is that it?" It's so good. That's like one of my favorite moments in this show. So cringeworthy. It's so awkward. And again, I love that she keeps asking Asher, like, "Did you eat the meat?" And he's like, "I'm not supposed to talk about it." I love that no one will tell her what's going on, and so she thinks by telling him he's going to prevent from making the mistake. But again, this is all part of the art piece, right? You're
I
supposed to experience this, eat the meat, and be like, "Oh, okay." Like, oh, she's in pain and crying out for the sins of humanity and the butchering of this animal or whatever, right? It doesn't matter what it is, but you're supposed to interpret it whatever you're supposed to. And she robbed him of that, even. Like,
eh,
he couldn't even go in and have a genuine experience because she thought, oh, I did the wrong thing, right?
th-
She wailed out and cried in pain. Maybe I did something wrong. Was I
yeah,
supposed to
this
eat the
is
meat?
like a smarter Velvet Buzzsaw. And this is kind of what I
Yes,
wanted Velvet
yes.
Buzzsaw to be. And
This is what
then
I want about myself.
And then
Yes.
I actually felt like Square did this really well. I know you didn't love that movie as much, but I felt like
uh, yeah,
the
no,
Square.
it did exactly. And it's funny that you mentioned it because I was like, yeah, things like that show, if you guys like the movie Square, if you like Triangle of Sadness, all that kind of stuff. Like there's plenty of mockery and parody to be had, but like at the same time, I still feel like it's an effective show on its own. But this is like a really hard show to recommend because I if I'm being honest, like I had to talk about this show because I can't stop thinking about it. It's like it's such a
Mm.
weird show and it exists in my head and I'm like, did I dream all this or was this real? And I don't know who to recommend this to because I know if I recommend it to any of my
It,
group of friends, they're going to be
it's so
like,
funny you said
why'd you make me
Dream,
watch that?
and then Nolan ended up interviewing the master of Dream
Yeah,
movies.
dude, I know. When I saw that, like, okay, Christopher Nolan is officiating or hosting a discussion about the curse with Benny Safdie and freaking Nathan Fielder, and I was like, what? It's like three of my favorite
Well,
people in there. I'm like, are they gonna do a collab together? Sign me up, dude! Like, holy
I
smokes! And I love that Christopher Nolan was just like
yeah,
quite fascinated with this. Like, I
I
love it.
love hearing from other directors like what art do they pull from and what do they find fascinating? Because that honestly, it's like somebody you love and they also love the same stuff you love. You're like, yes.
It's validating. You like the thing that I liked, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, last few things. He said he put pop culture funny, Pepsi commercial, never try to be funny. I love this. Always punch up, never down. Remember the rules of three. No politics and puns are safe. I don't know why. I just love that list. Like, again, this is somebody that was taking comedy classes for his show and he couldn't be released from the show. Remember they said without Asher we don't have a show, right? So the network needed, but they like the idea of the green queen, which is what they were possibly name the show. And then I love that Dougie is like literally hell-bent on ensuring that this couple does not make it through. With the filming of this show, he's
You
like, we got to have drama, you got to stir up controversy, you got to do this and that. And so he's like always filming them when they're not supposed to be filmed. He showed the clip of him giving the $100 to the girl selling soda. She curses him. He films all of that. He loves it. Like, oh my gosh, it's so
yeah, I
painful.
love when he's like, you're not recording, right? And no, no,
Yep.
no, no. And
No,
he's
no,
like,
no. He's still like totally recording. Oh
yeah.
my gosh. And he's like, you got the
He
shot,
his
right?
character is so funny. I love it.
Dougie's
He's like
great,
in the
dude.
car blowing into the thing. And he's like,
After he started driving, he's like,
yeah.
hey, you know what? Maybe we should just pull over and walk the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And then it's so sad. He's like, yeah. And like my wife died in a car accident and I was driving and like the breathalyzer came back or whatever, but he's like, it's not like I was even drunk. And I'm like, what is going on? Like he killed his wife in a drunk driving accident and like takes no responsibility for it. Like Dougie's a fascinating
I thought he said
character.
the other person was drunk, or was he drunk?
I don't remember. Like all I remember was him like justifying that it wasn't a big deal. And then like again, he's talking about it while he's on a date with this gal, telling him how it's not a big deal. Hey, pass me that breathalyzer, why don't you? And then hey, let's get out and walk. You're like, oh my gosh, like
Could have swore it was the
zero
other person.
self-awareness, right? Anyway, he's filming when he shouldn't be. And I like that there's plenty of times, I think the term is voyeuristic, where the camera's like in a weird positioning or it's like outside, but like we have a weird kind of like a creepy, like we're watching something we shouldn't be. Cause like usually it's like, yeah, you have your characters in the same room as you and you're like a fly on the wall. But this one, it's like you're literally out of the room and they're like talking far away, trying to have a private conversation and you're listening in on it. Like you're definitely watching something you're not supposed to be, is
A-
the feeling they give you this entire show. There's so
And
many
then
times where you're like, they should have cut or I shouldn't be watching this. Like,
you mentioned punching up instead of punching down. I feel like the show does that perfectly because that we've mentioned this before, but Borat 2, like I felt like they were punching down, which was such a
yeah.
bummer because like I feel like he's one of the, genius comedians that can punch up and get away with it. But I just appreciated that Nathan Fielder was willing to punch up because this totally punches up at, the extreme
Yeah, high
psycho
society. I mean,
liberals.
it
Yeah.
makes a mockery of the art,
Yeah.
the art scene. It makes fun of the reality TV shows, the personalities, the Instagram, the fake phoniness of it all, and he does it
Yeah.
so well. And so some of the other things too that I really liked were, yes, this whole idea of like the curse is what this show is based around. I like the idea that it was kept ambiguous, and at the end, like swinging for the fences again. this whole show is very ambiguous of whether or not there's actually something really going on or sinister happening. Because yes, Nathan believes he's been cursed, or I should say Asher. He believes he's been cursed, and he's like everything in his life he can attribute to this. Like if things start going wrong in his life, and at the very end, his wife is like shows him a cut of the show where she basically lays out that she doesn't love her husband, she doesn't see a future with him, and doesn't want him to be part of the show, and how if her marriage and her feelings for him can like stay afloat for the rest of this production. And he watches it, he leaves, and you're like, okay, he's notably upset, which he should be. And then he comes back in and he's like, I
Put
know
it
now.
in.
Keep it in the show. I know now. If I really felt that you want to be gone, I would be gone. And he like,
He's a
and
socio. He's
he's a
crazy.
psychopath. Like, I mean, he's a sociopath. He like, what's really funny though is like you kind of find out that he is a like a major like he
Oh my
loves being.
god.
He's like what do you call Jerry almost from
Yeah.
Rick and Morty, but like everything from his micro to
Yeah.
like his everything from like in his personal life, right? Like his previous marriage. And then Dougie is like, hey, would you ever feel weird like if I interviewed you and asked you questions, like you wouldn't be afraid that I'd ask you about a time where you had a friend. And I was just like, this is the sad thing. Nathan Asher has a problem with oversharing. He just shares everything in his life. It's like goes to his comedy class. Hey, I don't want anyone talking about my micro. It's like you don't have to tell them. They would never know if he didn't bring it up, but he just had to bring it up. His micro is mentioned and it's several times in this show. It's like, holy crap, dude! Like this show is so like it's crazy. Pardon the fun, but like it's so weird. Like even like and his own dad or his father-in-law, he's like peeing all over he gets him to eat a tomato and he's like peeing on the tomatoes and he's like, eat this tomato from my garden. And then you find out he's been urinating on him. He's like, that's the secret ingredient. He's basically like urinating on him. It literally reminded, you know what it reminded me of? And I don't know if Fielder is a fan of It's Always Sunny, but the whole episode of the meerkats at the zoo where they pee on each other to establish dominance.
Yeah.
That's literally what that was. His father-in-law peeing on the tomatoes, feeding his son-in-law a tomato, I mean, like, eat it, and then he eats it, and he's like, "You like it?" Yeah, it's like I pee on those tomatoes. You're just like, what's wrong with you? Insane. This whole show is insane. Anyway, my gosh, the very beginning, Dougie forcing this sweet mom. Like, I love. Okay, I love that. Again, trying to recreate like authentic moments. They wanted like people to be more grateful. Dougie at the very beginning of the show, they're like, "We're giving your son a job," and she's like, "Mommy's happy, yay!" And he's like putting teardrops in her eyes, and she's not crying enough. And so it like blows menthol in her eyes. He's like, "Stop hurting my mom." It's like just to get the shot, right? And it's like, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of me and you making film, Jordan. We didn't care who we hurt in the way of making the movies that we wanted to make. Dude, it made me think of Stanley Kubrick torturing Shelley Duvall, making The Shining, being like, dude, I need to get my shot. Like, it's more important than your personal feelings or how you feel about it or
Try any
possible endangerment. Yeah.
director in the 70s.
Yeah. I know I'm like specifically pointing to Stanley Kubrick. It probably was most movie makers, but anyway, they would
Well,
do anything for the
I
shot,
watched
right?
a documentary on Alien and all the people were passing out and Ridley Scott's like, "You bunch of babies, what's the matter?" And then his kids wore the suits because he wanted it to look bigger, the set he built, and his kids passed out and he's like, "Oh shoot, maybe we need to change those suits."
That's right. Yeah. That's now it's personal. Yeah. Now I care.
No. You made me care now.
Oh, it's great. Gosh, I love the one chubby guy being shown the home. And he's sweating like profusely, and they're like talking about this green home, and he's like, "Yeah, so I can get AC installed in here, right?" And he's like, and she's like, "Well, that would defeat the purpose of an eco-friendly home." And he's like, "Okay, well, how do you get it cooled down in here?" He goes, "Well, if you close all the doors and all the windows in like 4 hours, the temperature will regulate." And he goes, "So you mean to tell me every 4 hours, like the temperature will regulate?" Like it's so cringeworthy because again, she's like, we have to vet who comes and looks at our homes, that guy, and then the guy with the Blue Lives Matter stripe on his truck. She refuses to sell the home to him just because
Yeah.
of his political ideology. I was like,
And
that's
he's
very
like
indicative of
perfect
our
for the
culture today.
neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably would fit in just right there. But he believes in something that she finds abhorrent, and so she's like, I refuse to sell my home to this guy.
Yeah,
But again, like that's
crazy.
actually very in keeping with like I actually know people that think this way, right?
Yeah,
Like they refuse to to put other differences aside.
associate. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Anyway, the I love how he's like he tells her when they're doing the view of the home though, he's like, "Oh, it's like a prison or whatever," right? And he goes, and then Asher's like, "Yeah, well, but in prison, like I don't remember what he says, like you get your own toilet seat or something like that." And she's like, "Can we stop comparing my home to prisons?" Okay. So good,
Well,
dude.
what's funny is like she has to have like everything has to look how
Yeah.
and it has to put her
They
in
can
the
be
perfect
questioning,
light.
but they can't be skept or what does she say? They can't be doubt or whatever negative
It's
toward the
just
home. Remember? She says
like
that weirdest thing to
uh,
Dougie. She's like,
I
film this
just
couple. They can be interested in the home, but they can't be
her character drives
skeptical of it. Yeah.
me nuts. I
I know.
just and it's
So
good.
good.
That's what they're intending. Like
Oh, she did great. Emma Stone did awesome.
she's
She
just
blew it out of the park.
she is the worst human being on the planet Earth. Gosh dang.
So good.
Just
Um,
like she's I mean you can't get more fake than her character.
oh yeah, like even using Kara's artwork. Like at first she's like trying to be friends, and then eventually it's just like, sign there. I'll pay you 20 grand. Like it's not even like I almost thought she'd be threatening, but she never loses that veneer of like, oh, this is all great. We're friends. It's like,
Yeah.
here's 20 grand. Like it's like, okay, so you paid her to get the art in the show.
Honestly, I'm
Like,
terrified for her raising a child. Like
oh, I know. Yeah, definitely. I feel bad for that
and
kid.
that poor little kid
Although
is
it
gonna
may not
be
even be just any kid though. That might actually be Asher reborn again. Because I'm sorry. She's having a
reincarnated.
boy, right? Yeah, reincarnated. He like
Yeah.
ascends up to heaven. He's literally in a fetal position. It made me think of a baby, and then like all their imagery
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
yeah. It reminded me of The Shining also. Like
Or
or not The
2001
Shining,
Space Odyssey.
2001
It's
Space Odyssey, it's Space Baby.
yeah.
I was like, that's Asher. He's up in space now. And he's like all huddled up. Anyway, and then like also like another imagery that made me think of it, like they throw a sweater or something up and it's almost like an umbilical cord, and then like
Mm.
literally someone else brought this out, or like in a comment section I read, like cutting of the tree limb that he was attached to is a lot like the umbilical cord.
Oh.
The baby was mentioned to be feet first or feet down, which a baby is supposed to be born, is supposed to be head down, so it can be born naturally. um but the baby's feet was down first, which is dangerous for the baby, so they have to do a cesarean section, right, c-section. um and Asher feet first, like being sucked up into the sky, almost like I guess as well. So I just thought that was interesting, like literally. But in the end, whether it was like it's Asher Rebirth, it's like his son, but he also foreshadows this in a way where like there's some weird shots of like the sky. I only watched it on rewatch because I didn't know what was going to happen at the end. But when you go back, there's literally the whole scene of the girl. I forgot this. She was in school and she like curses her classmate who is bullying her, and then the rope tied to the ceiling, you're like, oh my gosh, she's gonna like
I
snap
know.
that
I thought the
rope and the
rope was gonna
child's gonna
snap.
die. Yeah, it's like a Carrie, right? You almost think it's like Carrie or
But
Matilda, like
nothing
a little
happens,
more
and
sinister.
I love that. Like I love this idea of like planting ideas in people's heads. Like
Yeah, it's
and
almost as powerful as if there really was like a brouhaha magical curse, right?
yeah, because I love
Yeah,
like how paranoid Nathan gets, and he's
yeah.
like
He
checking the
causes
footage to see who put the chicken inside the bathroom. Like, and
yes. Who put the chicken on the countertop? Dougie's like, I didn't do it. And then like he's watching and he see Dougie outside the bathroom,
yeah,
and
he
he's like,
doesn't go
oh,
in.
did he
You're
do it? Yeah,
like,
he doesn't go in. Oh, who was it? Dude, it's unnerving. And you almost want him to be like, oh, to be validated, right? But he never gets that
and I
validation.
love that, and
Yeah.
I find that so interesting because it creates all these ideas that people get in their heads. Like, and I love how it almost like grows. It's like a poison, and it's just
Right, because at the end, I even loved it all up into that point, and that's why part of me, like, the finale is something else entirely, but, like, those 9 episodes, right? You're like, "Yeah, is it or not?" It's completely ambiguous, and you
yeah.
could kinda determine. The score makes you feel like something's gonna happen or something wrong's gonna happen. It just keeps building and building, right? Like, there's no release of tension. Asher and Whitney, their, like, relationship is strained the entire production of the show, but then, like, you never get the sense that they were actually ever really happy. You're almost like, did she marry him out of necessity? Did he have some connection to the network that could get her on the show? her parents being slumlords that they were. She always goes and asks for money from them and thinks they're the worst people, but she like kind of does the same thing that they do. Like she just has different reasonings, and she
Yeah,
thinks
she like
she's
still
morally
takes money
justified.
from them.
Yeah, and takes money from them, which I
Thinks she's
love.
so above it. And I'm like, oh my
Yes,
gosh,
I
you
know. I'm like, dude, if I
freaking
was his parents, I'd be
hypocrite.
like, yeah, good luck. Do your own show. Watch it run into the ground. Like, anyway, crazy moments
She's a
like
spoiled little brat.
another crazy moment. The entire half episode where Nathan goes back to his previous job at the casino, finds his friend, gets, hey, let's watch a video on your computer at your desk. And he's like, okay. He's like,
Oh,
and he gets Gatorade, spills it on his lap, and then that's not enough. So he stands up and just dumps it on his head. And he's like, what the freak are you doing? And he's like, oh, and he like dumps it
and then
on
he does it
himself.
as
I'm like, oh my gosh, that for me was like one of the most cringeworthy scenes I've ever seen. Like, and again, it had such high stakes. I remember thinking like, oh, Nathan Fielder's gonna like pull it off. We can finally see him, give me something to root for. And it was like the most lazy, clumsy, inexplicable. Like, but then again, like his friends probably like, I don't know, man, he's just a weirdo. Like, I guess he thought that was funny. Like, do you not see that he was getting you out of it's crazy. And then he claims that it wasn't him, and then he's like, yeah, it was me. I did that because you're despicable. And I'm like, oh my God, stop. Stop. Just implicating himself in a crime. Just great moments. Oh my gosh, like uh, her going to Kara wanting to get her art in her home. Whitney's like at the party too. Like every interaction she has with her is so stressful because it's like they pretend to be such friends and they're just not, like not in the least bit. And at the very end, the final time where they almost see each other, I think it is one of the final times they see each other, but she's like ready to go in for a massage and she works there. And she's like, oh, like if it's weird. And she's like, I don't care either way. And she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna leave. But then she like leaves this generous tip or whatever, and not even getting the back massage. I was like, what the freak? And they're like, well, your appointment's already gonna be missed, so you can't get reabundant. I'm like, these people are not thrifty. I don't know how they have this money. Whitney just must be taking it from her parents because
oh,
there's also
100%.
the jean store where anytime they were shoplifting, they were just supposed to run it on the company credit card. It was stressing me out so much. Like they're running up that credit card, and he's like, "How much money? How much jeans have been shoplifted?" She's like, "What did she say? Like 10 or 12,000 or something like that?" It's like a dozen $1,000. And he's just like, "What?" But he has to keep it together because he's
Well,
probably like
what's
thinking,
interesting is she had an interesting idea, which she didn't want a kid to go to jail for stealing clothes. And so it's like she had a good intention there, but then people took advantage of that. And it's just,
"Sure,
it's so sad. It's just like the
yeah, it's
whole,
called reality." Like the world sets in. See all these altruistic, utopia type people that think like the world, like if we could just have sunshine and rainbows, and I'm like, it's just not how the world works. Like, I'm sorry, we
yeah.
need policemen to keep us safe. You want to defund the police, now there's no one to protect you, right? Like that's what it is, right? And they think like, oh, I'm doing good things. I didn't want this poor kid, he's probably disenfranchised, he's probably been down on his luck, we should just look the other way. It's like, okay, so you incentivize bad behavior, and you basically tell the cops, and you tell the guy that was protecting the mall with his gun, he's like, you get out of here. We don't need
Yeah.
you here protecting. I'm uncomfortable with your gun around. And then it's like, now you just have these shoplifters coming through, and then they all come up to her house, like all showed up with arms to the teeth. And they're like, hey, you need to stop gentrifying our neighborhood. Like you're bringing all this riffraff, you're bringing all these shoplifters, man. We hate it. And then he's just like she basically, waves them off or whatever. They leave, and then yeah, again, Nathan, so sweet. Asher's like, I would have taken a bullet for you. I guess he thought they were like literally going to be murdered, and she's like, "What are you talking about? Like we weren't in any danger." And again, Whitney is also completely unaware. Like she's just been so sheltered her whole life. So anyway, it's just very very interesting. But other crazy moment, and everyone's probably felt this in a chiropractic visit. For I think his character's name is Abhir, if I'm saying that right. The dad getting his ab shear, he's getting a chiropractic treatment, and he's like, no, this is good, that's good. And he's like, yeah, just relax. And they keep breaking his bones. And then pop his neck, and then he's laying there at the end, he looks dead. I hope he's feeling some relief because I feel bad for that guy. They gift him the house. It's like a very generous thing, and they're there. Asher gives this gift to Whitney, thinking that she's somehow going to be pleased that they're giving up their home and some gesture of
Yeah,
grand.
his reaction to getting that is so
Oh my
perfect.
gosh, yeah, he's just there and he's like, okay, well, who's going to pay the taxes for the first year?
So
And they're like, we want to gift you our home, and he's just like, okay, yeah, like, and I love it. Like, it's so funny because they talk about it. We don't know very much about Abshir. Like, he seems to be doing all right. He's got two girls. The girls don't seem to be needing anything. They seem to be thriving in school. So like, we have no reason to believe that he's down on his luck, and they treat him like he's some helpless immigrant. And he's like, dude, I'm living in their house. They're paying for
well,
everything.
and it's kind of like the idea of like I know our fathers use this many times, but enabling. So this idea of
Yeah,
like just y-
yeah.
if you just keep giving somebody, it's the whole like in the scriptures it talks about what is it? Give a man a fish, and then he'll just want to fish the very next day. But if you teach him to fish, then it'll feed him
Yeah,
for a
become
lifetime.
self-reliant. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. A good lesson, but what's so great is like as soon as he's given the home, right? He's like, okay, he pays the taxes. But also there's an implication there too that made me think of like, the show, was it Ty Pennington? He did like the home improvement, home extreme makeover, whatever.
yeah.
And they would show up to like these people that couldn't afford to, like, their house was falling apart, and people would submit their entry and be like, these people need some help. So they make him like this mega mansion, right? Where they live. And then it's like, okay, thank you for making this mega mansion, but now my taxes, this home is worth like $1 million. And now I can't even afford the taxes year round, right? These poor people, like, and so some of them end up
Is that
selling
how
their
taxes
homes.
work? I don't think they just skyrocket.
Yes, yes. If your
Hmm.
house goes up that much in value, you owe property taxes, and now you're on your home, which is what now it's worth.
Hmm.
Now, maybe they have that in the contract of the show, and maybe some of them could afford it, but some of them can't, and they have to move. It makes me laugh because it makes me think of Whitney and Asher thinking they're altruistic and they're such wonderful people, but like they're actually harming the community, right? Espanola doesn't need these folks. They don't need these ugly obelisks, these awful looking homes in their neighborhood. Freaking light shining off of is gonna set fires, dude. Like, it's crazy. Like, the sun shining off of them, and anyway, they're eyesores. But yeah, just love it. And then of course them trying to find humor in Asher's statement, and the guy's like, "Oh, hang on, there's probably a joke there," and he's like trying to help Asher find the humor in his, like, there's so many moments like this in the show, and there's just too many of them to talk about here. But anyway, I'm amazed at how every 5 minutes there's just like a cringeworthy moment, and like the show just keeps going. And narratively, it makes sense all the way up until the very end. I don't know. Anyway, the ending. I have to ask you, Jordan. Like, is it effective? Did you like it? What do you think about the ending? It's
I
crazy.
personally I loved it, but that's just me.
I I will say I'm not good at predicting like, I had no idea where the ending was going with this show. Like, I actually had a sneaking suspicion because they kept showing her like pregnant. I was like, okay, like they're gonna end it with like a complication with the baby, or maybe the baby's gonna be a miscarriage and they're gonna like have to grapple with that next season and like whether to start again because Asher was getting used to the idea of becoming a dad. Emma Stone is going to be used to becoming a mother, but then like that's taken from them. And so like, how do you go on making another show? But it's
Well,
crazy. They just jump forward in time, and like she's almost pregnant. They're on some other talk show, and the other talk show host is like, yeah, your homes, they suck. And no one's watching your show and everything. And it's just like, oh, and they just have to sit there and smile. Oh, it's so
uh,
painful, dude.
yeah, honestly, because the rest of it like gave me so much anxiety. It was kind of refreshing to watch
It's a release,
this.
all that
Yeah,
tension being released. He gets
yeah.
sucked up into space, and it was kind of amusing in a way because the effect they achieved was pretty impressive. Like, I loved that they almost make you feel like it it is technically a wacky thing they could justify in this house. Because I love that they blame the house. She goes, "We are not raising our kid in this house." Was a really funny moment because it made me think like, oh, maybe there's a like, because at first I thought it was a dream. He's like on the ceiling. He wakes up and she's like,
Yeah.
Asher, what are you doing up there? And he like looks down. He's like, what's going on? I thought he was dreaming. And then she's like, we're not raising a baby in this house. And he's like, look out for the pockets of pressure or whatever. You could get sucked up here too. I thought that was all really funny. And then like when he falls over and he hits the glass, it like shatters. Like in an instant, I got like a little bit of anxiety in that moment. I'm like this is a real problem. And like, and then it's like as he gets like works his way outside and he's like on the awning And the other Abdullah or whatever, the guy, he like takes his hands and he's like, ah, I'm just living. He's holding on to him. They're outside. Like, it's not the house. And see, that was my point, was like, I actually believe that the movie logic was making us believe that there was like, they're like, open a window and destabilize the pressure. I thought that was actually kind of funny. And I was like, oh, that's kind of like out there. But I was like, in this movie's universe, I could kind of see where they're showing like this home has its drawbacks, but then it was like, oh no, no, like this is far beyond the house. Like he's literally getting sucked up into space. What the freak is going on here? Um, I like the ending. It's so weird. Like this feels like a if this was like a short story, it's like, why was Asher sucked into space? Like
Yeah.
this is a movie that you would discuss at like book club in eighth grade or ninth grade or whatever in high school. But anyway, I love talking about this. The golf club, the gift giving, um, everyone not having like, they weren't overjoyed. Like, oh great, you get Rick and Morty did this really, really well, where he's like, hey, I'm Averdolf Linkler or whatever. And he's like, I freed the slaves or whatever. He goes, oh, so I guess I should or whatever, right? Like, it's like, yeah, you feel entitled to someone's gratitude is like one of the most sickening things of all time. So I love that the show did like 8 of those, like where they gave him something really generous and they should be like, oh, but they're like, whatever, dude. Like, love it. So anyway, crazy. One last thing I will say is this reminded me of Maniac, that stars Jonah Hill and Emma Stone. Also a lot about sci-fi and
Oh,
reality and what is reality and relationships and stuff. Really good show. Highly recommend you go back and watch that. I'm gonna go revisit that one because I liked it when it came out. You didn't understand it, Jordan. You didn't understand it. Such a good show. The last thing I'll say, and we can sign off, is just because I know you, baby. If I didn't want you to be, if I felt like you didn't want me to be with you, I actually truly felt that. I'd be gone. I'd disappear. You wouldn't have to say it. I would feel it and I would disappear. And Emma Stone's just like horrified. So good. Nathan Fielder, you get my star. Oh, and then the other thing was like, why would you say that? You need to validate me. He's like, I'm saying the things that the therapist said we need to be saying. He's like, why can't you do it? He's like, you're nasty. You're nasty. He's like yelling at Emma Stone. Crazy fight. And then again, to tie in lastly what I brought up when they were fighting about that authentic moment about the sweater being stuck on her head, the camera was still rolling and it films their whole argument. And I'm like, that's also your authentic self. And that's why this show is so good at portraying real life in a way, because life is just a series of boring interactions, awkward exchanges, and then getting off to watching and drowning out your sorrows watching Netflix. Like, is that not the most real thing on earth? Like, man, this show did it. So by golly, I love you, Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie, Emma Stone. You guys get my money. I will sign up for season 2. If this is an anthology and you do like a different series, kind of like Fargo, right? Because in Fargo, to its credit, like was like kind of 2 or 3 seasons, or like were almost one story, but like told at different times. Season 1 versus 2, but then like 3 and 4 now. I just found out there's like a season 4 of Fargo. It's like
there's a
it's a
season
different story.
5.
Oh, it's 5 now. See, I missed. It was Ewan McGregor was 3. What was 4? Oh, it was Chris Rock,
Yeah.
and now
True.
it's John Hamm. Wasn't any good. I didn't see it. I still need to see
I
3.
couldn't even get through 4. 3 had some okay moments.
Yeah.
1 and 2, 1 is perfect. 2 is really good. 3 is
I
has
guess like a
moments.
diminishing returns.
Yeah. And 1 and then 4, boom, complete
Right.
crash. I
Complete.
I don't know. I guess there's only up from there, I guess.
Yeah. And just like Benny Safdie and Nathan Fielder in this show, it's only up from here.
I
Pardon the pun. Um,
I just wanted to say
because
I'm
he's out in
ex
space.
uh,
It's only
oh, and then
uphill from here.
obviously, do we recommend it? I don't know who to recommend this to.
I don't know who
Sorry.
to recommend to do, but I had to talk
Yeah.
about it, so I appreciate you coming on the podcast to listen to us, dear viewers. I just had to. There's so much in this show to unpack, and that's why I had to just like regurgitate it all here. Um, and I love you guys
I,
for listening to me about it, and I love you, Jordan, for letting me
but
rant about this. I had to talk about this. It's such a weird show.
one
So
thing
weird.
I am looking forward to is the new Alien movie. It's going to be made by Fede Alvarez. He is the guy that did Don't Breathe.
Oh yeah.
He did
Oh wait. Don't breathe. I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to like the Quiet Place, because I just saw a Quiet Place 3
oh,
trailer.
trailer, no. This
Eh,
one
I
doesn't
don't know
have a
what to
trailer
think of
yet,
it.
but I just rewatched Prometheus and then Alien Covenant, and I'm like, I'm excited. Especially because Alvarez, like, even though like I'm not crazy about a lot of his remakes, like, but however, the look and style of his films are always fun. Like I still enjoyed Evil Dead on the first viewing. I can't I tried to rewatch it and I couldn't get through it. But anyways, he did make a TV show tie that I recommend on Apple Plus. I may have already told you about this, but have you ever heard of Calls? It's basically like Black Mirror episodes, but it's really cool. There's no like all it is audio and you just see like the audio waves. So basically like a podcast, but it's really fun. They tell these like little tiny stories on each episode and they kind of interlinked at the end, but they're
Interlinked
all
cells. Interlinked.
interlinked. That's really
Send
clever, fun
me. Is it
twists.
where's it
It's on
at?
Apple TV,
Do I have? I don't think I have Apple TV.
Apple Plus or whatever the
I don't
streaming
have Apple
service.
Plus. Can I get it anywhere else?
No,
That's the
but
world we live in, man.
I
All
know
these
it's
streaming services.
so many
Can I
different
just pay
streaming
for
services.
cable that has all the streaming services on one? I'll watch ad. This is the thing I learned about myself. I'll watch ads as long as it's the show I can watch, like or the show I want to watch, right? Growing up in the 90s, how did we do it? We would watch like 7 minutes of SpongeBob and 15 minutes of commercials. It's like, here's all the
I,
toys you'll never own. Here's all this candy and food that your junk food that your parents will never buy you. Like our livelihoods, man, we should sue. We should
oh
sue.
my gosh,
That's the move.
what have you seen, Ty? What are you looking forward to?
Gosh, guys, I've seen this little show called The Curse.
What
last
else?
thing, last thing
Oh
I'll say
my
about it.
gosh.
What the freak was up with the camera crew? Like, other than Dougie, like obviously, like trying to manipulate. Like, there was this random moment where he's like, "We're having a boy," but he's like, "Don't tell anyone." And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell everyone." The camera crew guy was like, "I'm gonna tell everyone." He's like staring Asher down, like he's like, "Come at me, bro." It was the weirdest thing. And Asher's like, "Get him the freak out of here." It's like, "What's his problem?" He's like, "I want him fired." And he's like, "Yeah, of course, boss. Like, he's fired." Like, what was that? It was and then there's great moments too where they joke back and forth where they're like, he's like, "Oh, the sound mic guy, like we could be doing what you do." And he goes, "Oh, you think you can do what I do? Yeah, you do my job then." And then there's like this uncomfortable silence, and then she's like, "You're messing with me. You almost had me." He goes, "Yeah, I'm messing with you. I almost had you." And I was like, like so many times the show felt like it was on such precarious I'm amazed they even got picked up. I'm amazed. Anyway, crazy show. Watched The Curse, loved it. And then I've been watching movie trailers because I'm getting ready for our 150th or 200th episode.
200. No, 300.
200. No, stop. It's not
Yeah,
300.
we're almost at 300.
This is Sparta. We're at 300, dude. That's crazy. And we still have so few listeners. How is that possible? How is that possible?
Ah,
If you film it, they will come, right? I watched did I mention American Nightmare? I think I
I think
did.
so.
Dusty
Yeah, you
Slay,
did.
the stand-up comic, yeah. So I really haven't watched many things. I just been rewatching curse videos and like meanings and interpretations, and none of them satisfy me. So
Yeah.
that's like all I've watched. But I finally did it. I talked about The Curse. You guys gotta go out there and watch it because you won't believe it if you see it yourself. Even if I explain it to you, it doesn't make sense.
And
I
then
watched the Super Bowl. That was the thing that happened. And the more I watched of it, the less I wanted Taylor Swift's boyfriend to win. Sponsored by Pfizer. That was weird. It's like, is this all just I just felt so cynical watching the Super Bowl even. And it was a good game. You had the 49ers going against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was like a close game. It went into overtime. Pretty
Ooh.
exciting. Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift's relationship just bothers me so much. I don't know why. Like, I don't even care. Like, I don't understand the popularity surrounding Taylor Swift. I don't get it. Like, she's not that great of a singer. And her songs that she writes, she probably doesn't even write half of them. I'm sure she writes some of them. They're all about failed relationships. And I'm like, but then like a lot of it is like self-aware, but like not self-aware because she's always like, "Oh, people are telling me I should get married and settle down." I'm like, don't then, or do. Like,
Well,
it
it's because you
reminds me.
just watched The Curse, and that's why you're
No,
like,
it's literally the argument that Dennis makes to Mac, where he's like, "Oh, a Dutchman doesn't think, oh, do I have to stand? Because when a Dutchman stand, he just stands." And he goes, "And with the Italian, does he think I can't eat a sandwich because I'm Italian? I need to plate of spaghetti because I'm Italian?" No, he just eats the goddamn sandwich. So he's like, just do the things you're gonna do, but stop making your identity as all part of it. And I feel like that's what we're at right now. And I guess if you're Taylor Swift, she's doing something right because she's literally the most famous person in the world, probably worth the most in the world. I mean, When I say that, I mean, like, she's selling out billions of dollars, but it's like, I'm sure, I have no idea. Is Elon Musk worth more than her? Who cares? But my point is, like, you're watching the Super Bowl and they just keep cutting to Taylor Swift. Like, they just keep, like, here's Taylor Swift's reaction to what's going on. And I'm like, I don't care what she thinks
Well,
about the game.
I know they're trying to get like a different audience
Yeah.
watching it.
Well, it's literally like, hey, women, we can get women interested into
Yeah,
football.
into football.
Here's a chick that you will never be uh graced by a fart in the wind, or even be graced by her presence.
It's basically the Oscars. They were praying for something like Will Smith to slap Chris
I
Rock.
know, right? For a moment, they're like, "Oh my gosh, she just saved our ratings this year."
I thought the next year they were going to try to do some drama or something because they were
Again,
like,
it's so funny that you say that, because the Deadpool 3 trailer just dropped, and it has like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again. He's very. Have you seen the trailer yet?
no.
It's pretty meta. It's really funny, but I'm like, I'm sure it'll be a good time. But like, even it seems so conceited in the fact that it's like, oh, it's gonna save Marvel, and I'm like, Marvel is dead, dude. But again, there'll still be good movies. Like I would even argue, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is a bit of a, a dark horse. Like, it's not. It doesn't. It's a dark horse in the fact that, like, it. Maybe that's not the right analogy. It's just like a diamond in the rough, if you will. It's like, yeah, Guardians are like uniquely interesting because James Gunn's at the helm, and he made those shows funny, interesting enough, and it was different from most of the other stuff. But then everything had that effect, and everyone tried to be Peter Quill. Like, let's take Thor and make him Peter Quill. I remember telling this to people. I was like, the very first time I saw Ragnarok, I was like, I liked it, but you're on careful treading, Taika and Disney. I'm like, you're just basically doing the Peter Quill or even Iron Man effect. But like, they took Guardians of the Galaxy that no one had any idea who these people were, and they were like such a cool franchise to be like three of the most popular Marvel properties, right? A good trilogy. And it's like, you've had Marvels, you've had Loki, you've had Wanda, you've had Hawkeye, Captain America. Iron Man's dead. Captain America's gone. Dead, I'm assuming. Hulk emasculated, like
I
everyone that we Thor, a father now. I don't know, it's
I
dead.
love
Like,
how these always like lean back into bashing Disney at some point.
yes, this podcast is just a way for me to pray. That's why I cleanse my palate with shows like The Curse, and
I
then.
need
But anyway, it made me think about it because they're in the trailer. Watch the trailer
I'll
for
watch it.
Deadpool 3. He's like, "Oh, I am Marvel Jesus," right? He's like gonna resurrect Marvel, which is dead. Which I'm like, that's a funny meta joke, but I was like, one movie's not going to do it, because again, it's like, even Bob Iger came out and said, he's like, the CEO of Disney, he's like, we're going to be like returning to like other popular shows, like basically saying how Marvel's was a huge flop. They're losing money, like millions of dollars, on these awful movies that no one cares to see.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm like, good, like, learn a lesson. But I'm like, I don't think they care to learn that lesson. I don't think they're learning that lesson. Kathleen Kennedy's still there, still got her thumb on freaking Lucasfilm, emasculated and ruined Indiana Jones, ruined Star Wars. My favorite quote from Rich Evans from the Red Letter Media, he's like, if you told me years ago that I would be paid but dreading to watch Star Wars films, I would have thought you were bull me. Like, I thought you would have,
Yeah.
like, I would have thought you were crazy. And now he's like, I dread watching Star Wars because there's no joy in it. It's joyless. And I'm like, that is the problem. They're absolutely joyless. It is a corporation. And I thought that during the Super Bowl. I thought that during the ads. I even thought that during Deadpool 3. And I hope the movie's good. I really do. I love Ryan Reynolds. He makes me laugh. He's super funny. And it's kind of cool that they're bringing Hugh Jackman. He's wearing the yellow suit. Maybe he'll have the mask. He better have the mask. It's just Wolverine, dude. Anyway, watch the trailer and you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's like,
Uh,
it is wishful thinking that this one movie will somehow revive this MCU. It's like, good movies like this will make money, and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this movie made lots of money. Oh, you
I,
want to take our money? You want to give us some money? Yeah, we'll take that money.
eh,
And then they're not going to make any money with the next project they're going to have. And it's like, why didn't anyone see Eternals 2? It's like, because no one cares. Just amazing. Anyway, mark my words. This is one of the last few movies out there that people are going to watch. Like, Madam Web's coming out, Spider-Man 4 is coming out. I don't know, Tom Holland. Like, every single movie is a franchise, sequel, prequel. Like, even Quiet Place 3. It's like day zero, and it's famous actors, and they're going back to the same story. And I'm like, I don't need to see Quiet sound ear monsters again. I don't need to see it. And, like, who's tuning in for this? But I guess it's just they think it's appeasing the masses that there has to be a shift. They need to get away from franchises, make original content. Maybe they have smaller budgeted films. That's fine.
Well,
But
let's
indie
at least let's
directors
stop
ready to prove
recording and then
themselves.
you can keep talking about Disney. I'm fine with that. Let's just
No, I don't want to talk about Disney more, but I'm
Okay.
telling you, Hollywood needs to change and they need to start directing small indie films. Like,
Well, they already
more
are.
chances.
The indie films are getting made, and I'm
They're
fine with
coming
that.
back. They're coming back. I love
They're
it.
not coming back. They've always been made. It's just not with big
Dude,
studio
okay.
budgets.
Cal Gallner, The American Dinner. I want to see that when it comes out. Like a crude Napoleon Dynamite. Guys, we love you, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Who's watching this show? What is reality? Are we just putting on a front? Are we even our true authentic selves, Jordan? That's the question. We love you guys. Leave us an email at futuremovies@gmail.com. Leave us a comment. Tell us a movie that you'd like us to review and or show. And if it's interesting enough, we'll review it here. Peace.
Peace.